You're listening to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay, and this is a program called
The Wonderful World of Wardini Books.
And it's my pleasure, as always, to have in the studio the wonderful Lou from Wardini Books in Havelock North, and something's comes between us.
I know, it's a bit weird, Ken. Hello.
Hello, how are you going over there? We've got a screen.
Yeah.
As you do in this day and age, and tell you what, I'm looking forward to it all being behind us.
Yeah, same. It'll happen.
Yeah, I wonder what will the new normal feel like? If they said, let's go back to normal tomorrow, it'd probably be a bit nervy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I think everyone would be quite trepidatious.
They'd be looking around like in, do you remember that TV series called The Prisoner?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good story, where the big white ball floated around.
Oh, I don't remember a big white ball.
Oh no, you're much too young to remember that program.
just a bit.
Anyway, we're just here to talk about some fabulous books, and one that would be right up my alley, Night Frights.
Night Frights, and this is book one, and it's called The Haunted Mustache.
Yes, and it's a children's book, isn't it?
Yes. It's for, I would say... Yeah, The Haunted Mustache. How can you resist it? So that's the kind of level of text. So it's probably for about a 7, 8, 9, that kind of, or nearly 50.
Yeah.
those kind of age groups. So in this one, you've got a bunch of kids and they're at school and they live in, it's like Wolver, where do they live now? In a little village anyway, a little town, and it feels quite American. And the kids, Lucas and Parker, they're in Mr. Knopfler's class, and in their town, every October the 19th, they all have to wear moustaches. So the men grow moustaches, and the women and the children wear false moustaches, because the ghost of the magnificent moustache of Bocchius Beauregard haunts the town on October the 19th, because years before, say 100 years before, there was a massive explosion at a quarry in which Bocchius was exploded. That's how they refer to it. And the only thing of him that survived was his moustache, which was found, you know, 5 football fields away, still attached to his lip.
Oh wow! How gruesome is that?
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome. And like the person that found it died of a heart attack, and died from fright. So the moustache is wandering the earth trying to find its one true home. You know.
Yes.
So there are some really it's absolutely hilarious the way that Mr. Knopfler puts it, and totally terrifies the kids. So towards the end of the first chapter, when there's all this setup. That caretaker had a bit of a moustache of his own, rah-de-rah-de-rah. The entire 5th grade class sat at the edge of their seats. They gripped the edge of their desks. They watched Mr. Knopfler with wide, open, unblinking eyes. "It will steal your lip for its own," yelled Mr. Knopfler, leaping towards them, and they're all like, "Ah!" So you can just see any kid that likes a bit of a scare, with tongue-in-cheek, a tongue-in-cheek sort of scare, are going to absolutely love this book. So the kids, they've got this night owl detective agency, and they go out to see if they can find the moustache haunting things, if it's true or not, because some of the kids say, how can this be true? No one's ever seen it for 100 years, no one's seen this moustache. And they go out and they find Bocchius Beauregard's grave, because they think, well, it must start there. And it is true, there is a haunted moustache. Yeah, so they try and defeat the moustache so that the town can rest easy on October the 19th.
Sounds like a page turner.
It was an absolute page turner, and it's just so funny. The kids are funny, and Parker and Lucas team up with Samantha Van Oppelstein, and she's always called that. They never just call her Samantha. She's always Samantha Van Oppelstein. And she's almost like the Hermione character.
Yeah.
So she's the brainy one that does all the reading and the research behind it. And they're just a good bunch of kids. And it's by Joe McGee, and it's illustrated by Ted Scaffer. And I absolutely loved it. Well written, no fart jokes.
Yeah.
Nice, just nice and funny, but with a proper story.
Sort of irresistible almost. Is it a one-off from that author, or do they have a series of them?
No, there's a series, and these aren't the right glasses, but I can't. Night Frights number 2 is the Luminous Lima bean. So obviously there's a haunted bean or something going on next. So I shall be reading that.
Excellent. All right. Now tell us about Northeast Swell.
Okay. The author, Aaron Topp, is from Central Hawke's Bay. And he is an award-winning author for young adults, mostly. He's been a teacher as well. And this one, I would say, is for kids of about 14 and up, or humans of about 14 and up. And it's about a kid called Whitty, and he's in his last year at high school. And his best friend is Alana, and he kind of fancies her. But they don't really go out or anything. It's all a bit... they've been a bit shy about the whole thing.
Unrequited love, that sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see how it pans out in the book. And Whitty's dad went missing 8 years ago. So his dad was at one point an extremely successful New Zealand musician and hit the big time, made it big overseas, and then clearly had some kind of nervous breakdown. And he's come home and they're living the quiet life, him and his mum and his dad, and then dad just goes missing completely. And they don't know what's happened. It's devastated the family. And then, so Whitty's about 18. He's a real keen surfer, and so is Alana. But Whitty's got this incredible connection with the ocean. So you know when you say it's calling my name, that kind of thing, it really is calling his name. He hears it calling to him and using his name. It's very spiritual. And the descriptions that Aaron writes when he is describing the surf and the tubes and some of the surfery language that I can't quite remember now, but it makes perfect sense when you're reading it. And he gets a clue from a family member about what's gone off with his dad, and of course he's going to go and investigate that. But it becomes so much more. There's this kid that's moved to school from Australia called Geordie, and he's the big, tall, blonde, surfy kid, quite a sort of brash Australian. And he kind of inserts himself in this relationship with Whitty and Alana, and has this big idea of where they can go off and catch some surf, and that all ties in with what happened years ago with Whitty's father and his coral up the coast, who reappears on the scene, and then there's this massive cyclone that brings it all together. And there's a bit of sort of like the industrialisation of climate change in there as well. So there's sort of a political message, a mystical message, and a real good young adult coming of age story all at the same time. It's quite incredible.
Sounds good. Now, a Hawke's Bay author, is it based in Hawke's Bay, the book? Will we recognise the spot?
It's based mostly in Wellington and up the coast from Wellington. So yeah, I mean, which is pretty recognisable to most people. You know, they mention Cuba Street. And,
of course.
Yeah.
And the last book we're going to review today, and it's all coming out of your head, it's Shelter.
Shelter by Douglas Lloyd Jenkins. And Douglas has got a local connection. So he was the director of the MTG when it became the MTG. And he's written all sorts of things on architecture and fashion. And his late husband was Peter Wells. Very famous New Zealand author also. So this is Douglas's first novel, Shelter, and it's set, I think, in the 80s mostly, and then it comes up to modern day. And it's about a young man called Joe, and he's a builder. And he knows something's kind of missing from his life. He just goes to work, he does his building, and one day on the motorway he notices this really cute guy in the car behind him, and he's kind of trying to flirt through his wing mirror. You know, the thing.
It's real visual.
Yeah, and it's all quite like, you know, it's not going to work, Joe, is it? And anyway, he gets to work, and lo and behold, this guy Leo turns up on the building site as well, and he's trying to catch his attention, and he's a bit awkward about it. And eventually they form a connection, he and Leo. And Leo says, "This is all quite cool, and yes, I am attracted to you, but I'm not gay, you know." And he's like, okay. And they kind of noodle along in their relationship, and they live together, and it's all quite amazing. And Leo is responsible for the intellectual awakening of Joe, because he's never been a reader, but he really gets him into literature and also architecture. So they're builders, but also from a sort of an architecture and a planning and a making a beautiful building point of view. They do these night walks around Auckland, and they're quite beautiful, the descriptions of the night walks, and looking at the old architecture of Auckland that they're worried is disappearing because of property developers. Anyway, this is all happening right at the beginning of the book. Leo gets cold feet about the relationship, basically. He wants to take it to something that Joe doesn't want it to be, and Leo just buggers off, he disappears. And Joe is absolutely devastated, and it takes him a long time to come out of this this relationship breakup, and he never really does. And he makes sort of a success of himself, and he makes other friends, and then we get the flashbacks of what went on with Leo, and then Leo coming back into his life when they're older men. And it is quite beautiful. So it's a love story between Joe and Leo, and it's about the development of their lives since this very intense relationship, but it's also about the development of the buildings, and you do kind of see Auckland in quite a different way.
Is it a meandering book, or is it?
No, it's quite focused, really. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on from what I've said there, isn't there?
Yes.
But it really is, it's Joe, and it's Joe's head, and if you just, I don't know if you ever saw that film Truly, Madly, Deeply.
No.
It was Alan Rickman, and he was a cellist, and he dies, and I think it might be, I don't know who it is, Zoe Wanamaker or somewhere, is just like pining for him. And you've never seen such a depiction of someone pining. And I got the sense of Joe's pining and longing for Leo in this book. It was so intense and it's so sad. But then how do you move on from that? And who helps you to move on from that? So
when we close the final page, will we be uplifted?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was a really neat story. There's a lot of hope in it for the buildings and for the humans. Yeah. And
speaking of words, many, many words, do you do that word game Wordle?
No.
I bet you'd be good at it.
I don't think so, because someone sent it to me and I opened it and I went, but there's no clues.
Yeah, I know.
It's just completely blank. I just couldn't be bothered.
Well,
I'm not good at puzzles.
I've missed 2 in a row, and a friend of mine on Facebook keeps posting, and they got the word in the second line. I thought, well,
I don't know.
I thought, who else would be good at that?
I've got other things to do.
Now, if we want any of these marvellous books, where do we get them?
Wardini Books, please. Thank you.
Good on you, Lou. My pleasure as always. Look after yourself. Talk to the same time, same place next week.
Cheers, Kev.